Okay, reading from the Caitanya-bhāgavata Antya-khaṇḍa. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's of the Caitanya, chapter 5, text 139. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pratāparudera sthāne haila gocara. Nīlācale āilena Śrī Gauracandra. Soon Pratāparudera came to know Śrī Gauracandra has come to Nīlācala. Pratāparudera, who was the king in the Ganga dynasty, lived in the capital of Cuttack during the time of Mahaprabhu. On hearing the news of Gauracandra's arrival, he came from Cuttack to Puri. Although the king had a great desire to see the Lord would not see him under any circumstances. Om Vijnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Taksur Unmalatamyena Tasmai Śrī Gurave Namaha Śrī Caitanya-mano Bhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sa Padantikam Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Syadvaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, greetings from Govardhan, a little disclaimer for today's class. Actually, I left at 5 o'clock in the morning from the Veda Shuddha Ayurvedic Hospital, beautiful center. 2-hour ride to the airport, 2 hours in the airport. So now it's 6:30 here. Basically, I was traveling since 5 in the morning and I just arrived here at 5:30. So I really didn't have such a chance to look at the purports. And I don't know what type of consciousness I'll be in, but I do seem to, I slept on the plane, that's for sure. And it's interesting, the different energies, different places. Kerala is, from external viewpoint, it's one of those paradises on earth. I mean, so green and the trees and the weather, and that Ayurvedic center was one of the most well-run places to every single detail. And they make their own medicine. And show you this, I got my little gift when I left. You can't see it, but these are all the different ailments in the different home. Oh, I can't see it, but anyway, different home remedies. It was just a really great place, and really. So even though I was 10-day quarantine, I did get a 9-day intensive, I guess, health detailing. I know they detail cars, they clean it all out and make it like that. Of course, the travel kind of threw it off right now. Now I'm in Govardhan, and I can feel the energy. I can feel this energy, and the energy is for God, for Krishna. And it requires that you move intensely in that direction. So it's not a place to relax materially. It's a place to float in the winds and energy of bhakti. But you have to be moving in that direction. And I gave my own analogy. It's like if you have a sailboat and there's a northern wind and you're going north, it's so pleasant. But if you're turning south, the same thing that is pleasant becomes difficult. And that's like here in Govardhan. when you're moving in the direction of Krishna and sacrifice and surrender and compassion and humility and gratitude, when you're moving in those directions, it's just the most pleasant breeze. But as soon as you turn to any sense of self-centeredness, it's kind of a place of struggle. And I've been here for many, many years. It's not easy sometimes. Even physically, when I came, somehow or other, right now this is on battery. The electricity is somehow not working in my house. When electricity is not working, the heater's not working. There's no central heating, and I generally, well, anyway, and the hot water is not. So it's just, if you want to be here, you have to be here for God. And that's what I'm here for. And that's why it's good for retreats, a couple of days. That intensity is easy to maintain, and it's good for retired people. I'm retired, you know, in kind of old age, where what's left of your material life, you don't have any duties and responsibilities. It's just God. Now, we've been following Lord Chaitanya's visit to Bengal, and then after sannyas, visit to Bengal, and now back in Orissa, and visited Panihati, and we saw the character of the life force and immortality, which is no selfishness. No selfishness means love. You're focused on not serving your whims, but serving the truth. And not serving your whims, but loving the truth. That means loving God. And when real love of God is universal. Prabhupada said, when you water the root of the tree, all the leaves and branches automatically replenish. So we're getting a sense of that. And a sense of the energy that goes through the consciousness of one who has that emotion. We say that happiness is love. The highest love is universal love. It's love of God. And love is an emotion. And if it's God's love, it's the strongest emotion. Sometimes they say that the perfection of that emotion can't even be contained within the material body. You can get to prem ankur, you can get to the sprout of prem, which is Baba, and then go to a place where Krishna's having his pastimes and perfect it. It's such an energy. Anyway, that energy is manifest here. And now there's a very, very important story that's mentioned, I think, more elaborately in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because you remember in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this Caitanya-bhāgavata was written first. And Krishnadas Kaviraj, when he wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita, said, you know, I'm respecting Vrindavan Das Thakur, and I'll only summarize, you know, the things that he's mentioned, and what he hasn't, I'll elaborate on. And one of the things I think is the story of King Pratāparudera is elaborated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's a very, very interesting story because there was a social system that was strictly followed. And because it was accepted by everyone, it was practical. Something has to be accepted. So there was this Vana ashram. There were 4 Vanas and ashrams, 4 ashrams. There was brahmachari, celibate student, grihastha, married, vanaprastha, retired life, and then sannyas. And there were 4 Vanas. And there was the laborer class, the mercantile class, the administrative and martial class, and the priestly and teacher class. Now, the sannyasa ashram, sannyas means, yasa means renunciation. It's one of the 6 opulences. And san means complete renunciation. And we mentioned before that certain varnas and certain ashrams, their work was more the cultivation of qualities more than a particular activity. That would, in other words, the cultivation of qualities that allow you to guide people. And I'll tell you the interesting story, because I took sannyas 38 years ago. And when I took sannyas, and my sannyas guru, His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj, he gave a lecture from the Bhagavad Gita. It mentions the qualities of sannyas. Abhayam sattva samshrudham jnana yoga vibhastita. Abhayam, fearless. Abhayam abhayam sattva. I just said it, purity. And jnana yoga vibhastita. One should be situated in knowledge. So he was giving the lecture and describing these different qualities. And then gave kind of an instruction for me as a sannyasi, avoid politics and business, because we need people in society whom can trust. And once one gets into management, it becomes harder to play that neutral role, because there's motive in organization. It's hard to play that neutral role of giving advice and business. When you do business, there's a certain cheating element that's allowed. You're trying to make a profit. So it's a very interesting instruction. Now here with King Pratāparudera, the system is that a king, not just a kshatriya, but a king, this is a king to rule, it's not an easy thing. You have to command a certain respect. You don't want to just force it. You want to inspire it. One psychological tool in inspiring it is the accoutrement of opulence, even if the king was detached. We even see that with the Queen of England. Why did they have jewels and forts and many wives? So many things. They had so much opulence because the psychology of the masses, and this is even true today, is they become respectful and subservient to opulence. Who do people respect today? Rock stars, that type of thing. Entertainers, that type of thing. That's today. But why? Because they have opulence. Of course, the king also had to have, a certain character, and there was so many qualities, and his generosity and his courage. So they had opulence, and it wasn't that a king just lived simply. He had opulence, and it facilitated this role of ruling, because you need authority, and it's best if it's given rather than taken. A ruler needs authority, and hopefully he has that authority because he is also following authority. And authority means two things. One, authority means the power to rule, and it means the knowledge You're an authority to have knowledge. The king was a very special position in that society, and people were trained and they were qualified. But here's the problem. He was a great devotee. Lord Chaitanya was a sannyasi. And one of the rules of sannyas in those days is you wouldn't associate with a king because you're a renunciate and the king has all the opulence. And the king was even called Vishaya, the object of enjoyment, because even if they were great saints, Raja Rishi, what did they say in Bhagavad Gita? Evam param para praptam imam rajarshio viduhu. The Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge was carried by Raja Rishis, kings that were rishis. They were also very learned. One time I remember this, there was a young American sannyasi, very tall, very handsome. And he was preaching in Iran, and he actually right now, his name is Richard Freeman. He's a very famous, world famous yogi, one of the top, probably 10 most famous yogis. So he was a sannyasi, and of course, that was, of course, a problem in itself, not at the time, but even Prabhupada said that, his godbrothers sometimes criticized him. He said, but one thing they were right about is I made a mistake giving young men sannyas. Most of them left. Most of them couldn't maintain that. If you see the people that Prabhupada gave sannyas, how many could maintain it? It's such a vow, lifelong vow of celibacy in the Kali Yuga. He said, but what can I do? And then Prabhupada quoted a Bengali proverb, when there are no trees in the forest, the castor oil tree looks big. So Prabhupada needed a social system. He needed a system of authority, and he tried his best. He empowered some preachers, but they couldn't maintain it. But anyway, he was one of them, and he was a handsome guy. And towards the end, he visited Prabhupada. And after he visited Prabhupada, my godbrother Pradyumna, who is Prabhupada's Pandit, Sanskrit Pandit, edited his work. He came in and told me that when Prabhupada saw him, and he was actually preaching in the court of the Shah-Vairam by teaching yoga. He was actually preaching in the court of the Shah-Vairam, who was probably the richest man in the world. Prabhupada said, oh, he said, you are Raja Rishi. And then Prabhupada said, Evam param para praptam imam rajarshio viduhu. You are Raja Rishi. So here there's going to be a story. I know it's told in the Caitanya-bhāgavata. We'll see how it unfolds here. There's going to be a story of this king. As it said here, he had great desire. Prabhure dekite se raja bari priti, but Prabhu sanadena darshana kada. But Lord Chaitanya would not see him. And this is going to be a tension. Because if he had to choose between a king, we all want to be kings and queens. What do we want? We want to enjoy. And what do you need to enjoy? You need accoutrements of power, because then you can control things. Without controlling things, how can you enjoy on the material platform? That's why in the Bhagavatam, that's why in any Purana, any authorized history, spiritual history in India, there's 18 Puranas. One of the qualifications, one of the categories, it must discuss the manus or the kings. And why is that? Because that is everyone's aspiration if you look in your heart. And you have to discuss the king because you want to show that that position is not worth aspiring for. Because if you have the history of the kings, they're in fear, people are taking over, they have the same problems. One king, in the story of King Chitraketu, he couldn't have a son, and therefore there was no heir to the throne. And then he had a son, and then the co-wives became an anxiety. And then you have Maharaj Anga, the same thing. He couldn't have a son. And then he performed a sacrifice, but he performed a little bit wrong. And then he had a son, but the son was very cruel. He was so cruel, he was killing his classmates. And you go on and on and on. And they have Maharaj Cricket, and he gets angry, and then he gets cursed. And then you go on and on and on. That's the history of the world. And there was one king who was on the shore of the ocean. Prabhupada quoted the English king, wanted to stop the ocean. Time and tide wait for no man. Tasyeva heto priyateta kovido talabhyate yad brahmatamu bar. You can go, tasyeva heto, though who's intelligent, they don't do this wandering. I want to be king. I want to go up. I want this. I want that. They don't wander. They go for that which has meaning. And this story will show, what does the king want more? The darshan of God, the connection with God in the heart, the love in your heart, or do you want to be the king? The king is the obstacle. The king is the obstacle. My next Monday morning greetings, it'll come out Monday. I kind of wrote it, and I told the story of coming for this Ayurvedic retreat, and then somehow or other, I told that story. There's another story I elaborate on, but somehow or other, by the traveling, because from Delhi, it was great today. It's just a 3-hour flight, but from Calcutta, it's 4.5 hours to Calcutta, and then fly to Chennai, and then fly there, and then 2.5 hours to the retreat center. And somehow it wore me down, and I caught COVID. I'm thankful that I did. It was very, very mild. And now I have the antibodies, so I don't have to worry. I carried around my medicine kit for 2 years in case I had it. And as soon as I got it, I took the repurposed drugs and the different vitamins, that the protocol that I had faith in. And I've studied a protocol as a curative and preventative for COVID. I took it, basically the mild flu lasted 2 days, but a little bit longer because I was a little run down. But I was quarantined for 10 days. And then somehow or other in the cabin they put me in, the electricity wouldn't charge my computer. So I really couldn't write. And then, and so I was, okay, the mental focus for chanting, I was, I basically had a flu. If you have the flu, you like to sleep. But I remember sitting on the porch, looking out into the little forest. And I would put in quotes, seeing God, just so clearly seeing that he's always there, his care and protection is always there, everything is Krishna. And seeing that and then feeling that. And that's essential for bhakti. That's essential for bhakti. Because bhakti is a feeling. And we don't have that feeling because we don't see God. And we don't see God because we're covered by ahankara, the concept of doer and controller. And therefore I was saying, when that control is taken away, vipata shantu tashashrat tattva tatra, Queen Kunti, let those calamities happen again and again, because then you're there. When that sense of I am the doer, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, when that is crushed, then you can see who is. And when you see who is, you can feel who is. And then you have, in a sense, yes, this is what life is about. And I want this more than I want the control. I want this more than I want the power. So this is what this king Pratāparudera, and the story is he will eventually meet him in disguise. Sarvabhauma Arishabha sthāne raja kohi tatapi prabhuda keha najanayabhaya. Although the king requested Sarvabhauma and others to arrange his meeting with the Lord, they would not do so out of fear. Fear because Lord Chaitanya would become angry. Prabhupada said that, we can't be sannyasis like days of yore. I mean, sannyas, sannyas was part of a social system. That responsibility is still there, that sannyasis should represent renunciation of this world to inspire society to move in that direction. It's not that we can't have things, it's not that we can't enjoy, but our goal is bhakti, not enjoyment. And therefore, at a certain level, more and more we give up those things which have no value to that goal. So, anyway, the king was intensely wanting this, but they were afraid because in that social system where the sannyas, we take sannyas, Prabhupada did it. The history of sannyas in the Gaudiya Math was there was another mission that was giving sannyas that was becoming, popular, and it's respected in society. And for preaching, Bhakti Siddhanta instituted that. Otherwise, it's generally prohibited in Kali Yuga. So it certainly has the demands of sannyas, but not like days of yore. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya would become they were afraid to tell Lord Chaitanya, you see this king. You see this king. The king said, if you are all afraid, then at least arrange that I may see him without his knowledge. I'll read the purport. It's prohibited for sannyasi to see and converse with a king or a woman. A person who desires to fulfill his sense gratification by obtaining a king's favor desires to meet the king. To establish the principles of proper etiquette, Mahaprabhu never saw or conversed with women or the king who was approached for obtaining favors. That is why none of the devotees dared to take the king of Ukkal to see Mahaprabhu. They were too afraid. Dekya Rajata Arti Sarva Bhakti Gane Shabe Mele E Yukti Karila Mane. When the devotees all saw the king's intense eagerness to see the Lord, they got together and made this plan. So they were the devotees are always very kind of merciful and they're compassionate. So they wanted to kind of facilitate this. When the Lord dances in kirtan, by arrangement of providence, he loses external consciousness. The king is also a great devotee, so he can use that opportunity to see the Lord without the Lord's knowledge. He's a pure devotee, King Pratāparudera. So this is such an intense desire and such a frustration. After making this plan, they informed this king, who replied, somehow or other, I want to see him. One day, by the arrangement of providence, the king heard that the Lord was dancing and quickly came there. The king remained out of sight as he watched the Lord dance. He had never seen such a wonder before, because movements can represent consciousness. I've read this in 2 different books, but there's actually a study of facial muscles and what emotions they indicate. For example, if there's a smile like this, it's fake, because it just the tips are going up. So they can analyze by the muscles. But real joy contains more. So it's the same thing with prema. The dancing is an expression of that love, and when you see it, you can see that love. I remember the first time I saw Prabhupada, those are the days where there was no TSA in the airport and the kirtan. I was working during the summer. I hitchhiked on the Belt Parkway. My parents' house was about 30 minutes from JFK Airport. And we were doing kirtan, and Prabhupada came down the steps, and Prabhupada gently, waved. To me, it was the movement. And of course, dance it is the art of expressing emotions through the body. But so he saw him dance. Streams of tears incessantly flowed from the Lord's eyes, and his body manifest shivering, perspiration, hair standing on end, and loss of color at every moment. The Lord fell so forcefully to the ground that there was not a single person who was not frightened. The Lord roared so loudly that King Pratāparudera had to cover his ears. Sometimes the Lord cried so intensely in separation that the king saw streams of tears flow from his eyes. In this way, the unlimited transformation of love that appeared and disappeared cannot be described. The Lord raised his 2 powerful arms and joyfully danced as he chanted, Haribo, Haribo. After dancing for some time in this way, the Lord manifested external consciousness and sat down with his associates. The Lord then left unnoticed. His mind was filled with the king then left unnoticed. His mind was filled with ecstasy from seeing the Lord's dancing. Just like we like to go to concerts, or people like to go to concerts. If they had a favorite band, they would just want to see them. They don't want to be outside the door. And if they saw them, it would be so it's like this. This is more than that. And he got to see them, so he's satisfied. The king was unlimitedly satisfied after seeing the Lord's wonderful dancing and wonderful transformations of love, because it's Krishna. There is a universal principle of attraction, and the universal principle of attraction is love, and God is the object of that love. And that's our goal. Our goal is to have that consciousness and feel that and actually see that it's here, but we're in Maya. We're in illusion. We don't see what is there. We don't see we don't see God. We don't feel God. So that's the goal. So how satisfied was he to feel that? But in his mind, there arose one doubt, which later became the cause of his achieving the Lord's mercy. When the Lord was continuously dancing, divine tears flowed from his eyes and saliva flowed from his mouth. In the ecstasy of kirtan, the Lord's entire body became covered with dust, saliva, and water from his nose. The king was unable to understand those transformations of ecstatic love for Krishna, so some doubt arose in his mind. So it was so, because one of the emotions that comes, that creates rasa, that brings love to the highest level is called sattvika bhava. And I've explained this many, many times, that they're on the highest level of devotion, when that prema is flowing from the consciousness, there are involuntary reactions called astika sattvika bhavas. And that's tears coming from the eyes, hair standing on end, roaring, it's called hunkara. There's trembling, so I don't remember them all. So he's seeing these, and he can't really understand them. Okay. Because of the travels, and not only travels, but somehow as soon as I come back, there's a very important meeting, even though it's late at night, I had to accede to it about something. I have a lot to do in a short time. But it's always great to be with everyone. It was great to come back from that retreat. It was very powerful. It was so organized. Oh my God. There's nothing and I have a sense there's nothing I can complain of how organized that place was. They even cooked, especially for us, because sometimes they use onions. So Bhaktivedanta Swami and his two assistants and myself, very caring. And then the last 2 days I had a special purification, because when all the poisons are dislodged in the body, then there's virachana. So again, they cook special for me, a special sabji and some rice water and things like that. And it must be pretty good, because after I traveled out for 12 hours today, I'm in a pretty good consciousness. Jamunajai, you could start it off. You always do that nicely with any point you remember that. You take your notes.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah, really wonderful class. I always feel for King Pratāparudera. I'm like, let him in. His heart is so clean. Let him see you. My heart breaks for him every time I hear this pastime. But I really love the point of that. The king has authority because he's taking authority. And you said once that a king only has authority in his land, but a holy man has authority everywhere. So I was just making the connection.
Yeah, that's a statement of, king is respected as his village, but a wise man is respected all over the world. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jamunajaya. Okay. I will. Anybody else like to share any point that impressed them? Okay, a few people say hello and we could.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thanks so much.
Wow, great to see you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Very well. Good. Great. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much for the class. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Contact that Indira. I gave Surya Radhika her. You really
I
like
did,
her.
Maharaj.
You'll send her a WhatsApp and talk with her, okay?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
Hey,
thank you very much. This is very kind of you, Maharaj. Looking forward to come to Govardhan.
What's that?
I'm looking forward to the trip. I'm very excited, Maharaj.
I think it's okay. And I kind of checked on, there's something else coming with the rules. I think I checked with the MBT and all those, and they said we should be pretty good. And we're going to be very careful because we're out in Govardhan, it's open air and things, but okay. I'm looking forward to it too. Okay, very well.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thanks for the class.
Okay. Okay, good to see you. Thank you. Very well.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Namaste here.
Namasaki, Haribo.
Haribo.
Next year in Govardhan, Namasaki. Next year in Govardhan.
I hope so. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you so much
Anybody
for
else?
the class.
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hey, Haribo. Good to see you both.
Haribo. Thank you for class.
I'm going to come back to America the day after Gaur Purnima. So maybe I'll do a Sunday class someplace. And then on Wednesday, I'll head to Colombia for about a month. And after India, I go to Russia for a few days, for 10 days. But then I'll be back for the summer, and Lal can come over and you can come over on Mondays. We can have our rasa together.
Pick up where we left off. I look forward to it.
Waiting for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Tota Gopinath here.
Kishori
Haribo, Tota. Great. Oh, Priya, Haribo. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for class.
Isabel, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
If you're free, come down to Colombia.
I'm trying to. I just started my new job.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's Missy.
Missy, I got a message from you. Right? Did I respond?
Yes, you did. I was going to call you this week and just set up some time to chat.
Okay, we'll set up some time, okay?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, anybody else?
Hello, Maharaj. Thank you for the class. This is Laja Sheila.
Okay, we have to contact this week. I've been traveling. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you so much for class. Thank you so much.
Rajrani, Haribo. Good.
Haribo. Hare
Anybody
Krishna
else?
Maharaj.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo, Gail.
Haribo.
Okay. I think I'm going to have to cut off now because I got to do some things, but it was great. I'm glad I didn't cancel the class. Okay, Hare Krishna.
So much for class.